Every bride dreams of her perfect day. Mine was supposed to be a fairy tale, complete with a Prince Charming and a happily ever after. Instead, it became the stage for the most spectacular betrayal of my life. The satin of my wedding dress felt like a second skin, a creamy dream I'd spent months, no, years, fantasizing about. Each stitch, each sequin, was a testament to the future Mark and I were building. Or so I thought. I was oblivious, humming show tunes while pinning veil options to a corkboard, completely unaware that while I was planning our wedding, he was meticulously planning his escape. It started subtly, as betrayals often do. A missed call here, a late-night text there, always with a plausible explanation. Work emergency, babe. Just catching up with the guys, you know how it is. Natalie, was head over heels in love, blinded by the sparkle of a 2-carat diamond and the promise of forever. Mark, with his easy smile and even easier charm, was my everything. He was the anchor in my sometimes chaotic life, the quiet strength I leaned on. We'd been together for 5 years, through college, through my early struggles as a freelance graphic designer, through his steady climb in a tech startup. Our relationship felt like a well-worn, comfortable sweater, warm, familiar, and utterly secure. The wedding planning was my domain, and I embraced it with the fervor of a true enthusiast. Pinterest boards overflowed with floral arrangements, cake designs, and bridesmaid dress ideas. Spreadsheets tracked guest RSVPs and budget allocations. I found joy in every tiny detail, imagining Mark's face when he saw the rustic chic decor, picturing our first dance under a canopy of fairy lights. He, in turn, was supportive if a little detached. "Whatever makes you happy, Nat," he'd say, kissing my forehead before disappearing into his home office, supposedly to tackle another urgent project. I attributed it to the stress of his demanding job, the pressure of his growing responsibilities. He was always working, always on calls, even on weekends. I admired his dedication, his ambition. Our wedding date was set for September 15th, a crisp autumn day that promised golden light and comfortable temperatures. Invitations, meticulously designed by yours truly, were sent out in June. The RSVPs trickled in, a delightful stream of confirmations from friends and family eager to celebrate our love. My mom, a whirlwind of nervous excitement, was already coordinating with the caterer and making sure my Aunt Carol's notoriously loud cousin wouldn't be seated next to my perpetually grumpy Uncle Bob. Everything felt right, perfect even. Then came the first crack in my perfect facade, a hairline fracture I almost missed. It was late July, and I was trying to finalize the honeymoon plans. Mark had been vague about his preferences, saying he trusted my judgment. I'd narrowed it down to 2 options: a romantic getaway to Santorini or an adventurous trek through Patagonia. I walked into his office, a brochure for Santorini in hand, ready to sway him with pictures of whitewashed villas and cerulean seas. He was on his laptop, his back to me. His screen was open to a travel website, but it wasn't Santorini. It was a remote eco-lodge in Costa Rica, booked for 2, under a name I didn't recognize, M. Davies. My heart did a strange little flutter, like a trapped bird. "Who's M. Davies?" asked, trying to keep my voice light. He jumped, startled, snapping a laptop shut. "Oh, hey babe, didn't hear you come in." He turned, his smile a little too wide, a little too quick. "M. Davies? Oh, that's a new client. A big one. I was just looking at some potential team-building retreats for them." He gestured vaguely at the closed laptop. "They're really into ecotourism, so I was just doing some research." His explanation seemed plausible enough, but a sliver of doubt, cold and sharp, pricked at the edges of my usually trusting nature. I pushed it down. Wedding stress, I told myself. We were both under a lot of pressure. The next few weeks were a blur of final fittings, menu tastings, and last-minute seating chart adjustments. The closer we got to the wedding, the more distant Mark seemed. He'd often be working late, returning home after I'd already fallen asleep. When he was home, his phone was practically glued to his hand, face down on the table, always vibrating with work emails. I tried to engage him, to share my excitement. "Look, the florist sent over mock-ups of the centerpieces. Aren't they gorgeous?" He'd glance up, offer a distracted nod, and then his eyes would drift back to his phone. A knot of unease began to tighten in my stomach. 3 weeks before the wedding, I found a burner phone. It was tucked away in his sock drawer, beneath a pile of old t-shirts. I was tidying up, a rare moment of domesticity, when my hand brushed against something hard and rectangular. My breath hitched. I knew instinctively what it was. My fingers trembled as I picked it up. It was cheap, nondescript, completely unlike his sleek smartphone. I turned it on. No password. And there, in the messages, was a string of texts that made my blood run cold. They weren't from a client. They were from S. And the messages were anything but professional. Can't wait for Costa Rica, my love. Missing you. Only a few more weeks. Are the tickets confirmed? Don't want any hitches. My vision blurred. Costa Rica. The Eco Lodge. M. Davies. It wasn't a client. It was her. S. The realization hit me like a physical blow, stealing the air from my lungs. I sank onto the bed, the burner phone clutched in my hand, the weight of it crushing me. The perfect life I thought I had, the perfect man I thought I loved, it was all a lie. A meticulously constructed illusion. I went through his things like a woman possessed, my heartbreak quickly morphing into a cold, determined rage. I found printouts of travel itineraries, not just for Costa Rica, but for a whole circuit of places: Bali, Thailand, Australia, each under the name Mark and S. Davies. Davies. His last name. She was already using it. A second, even deeper cut. And then, the ultimate betrayal. Tucked into the back of his desk drawer, beneath a stack of old bills, was a crisp, official-looking document. Divorce papers.
Signed. Filed.
From him.
To me.
Dated 2 months ago. My wedding was 3 weeks away. He had planned to marry me, to stand at the altar and make vows, while simultaneously having already divorced me in his mind and on paper. The sheer audacity, the calculated cruelty of it, made me sick to my stomach. He wasn't just planning an escape, he was orchestrating a complete erasure. The world tilted on its axis. The white dress, the fairy lights, the carefully chosen vows, they all felt like a cruel joke. I thought of every work emergency, every late night, every distracted glance. He wasn't working, he was building a new life with someone else right under my nose. He was investing in their future while I was pouring my heart and soul, and every last penny, into a future that was already dead. The next few days were a blur of tears and ice cream. My best friend, Chloe, found me curled in a ball on the couch, the divorce papers and burner phone scattered around me like evidence of a crime. Her initial shock quickly turned to a fierce protectiveness. "That bastard," she hissed, gathering me into her arms. "We're going to fix this, Nat. Or rather, we're going to make him pay for this." But I didn't want to fix it. I wanted answers. I wanted to confront him, to tear down the facade he'd so carefully constructed. But Chloe, ever the pragmatist, had a different idea.
No, Nat.
We don't give him the satisfaction of a confrontation. We let him think he's gotten away with it. And then, we pull the rug out from under him. A plan began to form, a vengeful seed planted in the fertile ground of my broken heart. We kept the wedding plans going. I continued to smile, to nod, to pretend everything was normal. My parents, overjoyed at the impending nuptials, suspected nothing. Mark, increasingly confident in his deception, became even more brazen. He'd even started to make subtle digs about my overspending on the wedding, a casual way of preparing for his financial disappearance. Little did he know I was about to spend even more. The night before the wedding, the rehearsal dinner, was a joyous affair. Mark, looking handsome and completely at ease, toasted to our future, his arm around my waist. I smiled back, a hollow ache in my chest, but a steely resolve in my eyes. He had no idea what was coming. The morning of September 15th dawned clear and bright, just as I had envisioned. The air was crisp, the sky a brilliant blue. I put on my dress, the creamy satin now feeling less like a dream and more like a costume. My bridesmaids, none the wiser, fussed around me, adjusting my veil and telling me how beautiful I looked. Chloe, however, knew. She gave my hand a squeeze, a silent promise of support. The church was packed. The organ music swelled, and the doors opened. My father, beaming, took my arm. As we walked down the aisle, my eyes locked on Mark, standing at the altar, looking every bit the eager groom. He smiled, a genuine smile, a testament to his masterful deception. My stomach churned, but I held his gaze, a phantom of my past self. We reached the altar. My father gave my hand to Mark, who squeezed it warmly. The officiant, a kind-faced woman from our community church, began the ceremony. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today. And then I took a deep breath. Stop. My voice, though trembling slightly, cut through the reverent silence. A ripple went through the congregation. Mark's head snapped towards me, his smile faltering. His eyes, usually so calm, were wide with confusion. Natalie, what? He began. I turned to face the stunned guests, my voice gaining strength with each word. I have something to say. I looked directly at Mark, my gaze unwavering. Mark, you thought you were so clever, didn't you? Planning your escape while I was planning our future. You thought you could divorce me in secret, run off to Costa Rica with us, Davies, and leave me to pick up the pieces. A gasp rippled through the church. My parents looked utterly bewildered. Mark's face went from confusion to a sickly pallor. But here's the thing, I continued, reaching into the delicate beaded purse Chloe had secretly handed me before I walked down the aisle. I pulled out the burner phone and the divorce papers, holding them up for everyone to see. I found these, and guess what? I decided to plan my own escape. His eyes were darting wildly, looking for an exit. There was none. The entire congregation was staring, mesmerized by the unfolding drama. You see, I said, my voice rising, while you were booking your romantic eco-lodge, I was busy making a few phone calls of my own. I turned to the officiant, who was looking rather green. Thank you for your time, Reverend, but you won't be officiating our wedding today. Then I turned to the back of the church. However, I announced, my voice echoing through the silence, you will be officiating a wedding. Just not the one you expected. A hush fell over the crowd. And then, from the back of the church, a familiar figure emerged. My former college roommate, Liam. Liam, who had always had a soft spot for me, who had been a rock through my Mark-induced heartbreak, who had patiently listened to my tearful confessions and gently reminded me of my worth. Liam, who, in the last few weeks, had re-entered my life in a completely unexpected way. He walked down the aisle, not in a tuxedo, but in a smart navy suit, a gentle smile on his face. The congregation gasped again. He reached the altar, and I turned to him, a genuine smile finally gracing my lips. Liam and I announced, realized something important. That true love isn't about deception and escape. It's about honesty, respect, and building a future together, truly together. I looked back at Mark, who stood frozen, his face a mask of shock and horror. So, Mark, I said, a triumphant note in my voice, while you planned your escape to Costa Rica, I planned my own. A different kind of escape. An escape from a lie and into a future with someone who actually deserves my love. The officiant, catching on quickly, offered a small, knowing smile. My parents, though still reeling, had begun to understand. My mother, bless her heart, even gave a tiny, almost imperceptible nod of approval. Liam took my hand, his grip warm and steady. He looked at me with an adoration that was real, not feigned. And in that moment, standing in front of a shocked congregation, with the man who had tried to break me utterly shattered, I knew I had made the right choice. My escape wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming my life, my dignity, and my future. And it felt infinitely more satisfying than any honeymoon in Santorini could ever have been.